We acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's spirit, imagination and rich history of storytelling and humour that is an inspiration for all Australians.
Hello! Welcome to another episode of The Bearer of Weird News. I am, as always, your host and the suppository of all wisdom, Matt Harvey. It's getting to the end of October, guys. The scariest month. So that must mean that we are brought to you this month by International Disarmament Week. Yes, that's right, International Disarmament Week. What else will be brought to you by at the end of October? Starting on the 24th of October, it's the anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. And Disarmament Week seeks to promote awareness and better understanding of disarmament issues. So to celebrate the 45th year of attempting to disarm, we are doing something a little bit different to remind people just how important disarmament is. We started another war! Not just an ordinary war though, no. This war is a war in the Middle East, which will confuse a lot of people on who exactly to support, despite the obviousness of not supporting oppressive colonizing regimes. Still, people will be confused. If this doesn't get the message across, I suspect maybe we just enjoy war. Happy International Disarmament Week, you guys! Yay! We're also brought to you by International Artists' Day. It's International Artists' Day on October 25th, a day that honours artists and all contributions that they make. Several organisations around the world support International Artists' Day. Some of the suggested ways to participate in International Artists' Day include doing an online quiz to determine what kind of artist you would be. Huh? How quirky. Taking a starving artist out for lunch, but under no circumstances address the issues that allowed them to become a starving artist in the first place. Otherwise, this day would cease to be necessary. Buy a ticket to a podcast host Fringe Festival show. Oh, how did that get on the list? You should probably do that. Visit an art gallery and make sure that you complain that you could have painted that yourself about anything that you don't like or understand. Maybe start writing that book that you've been putting off, hey? Hey? Get around to it. You can learn how to play a musical instrument, then realize how hard that is, give up, and go and buy a donut. Or you can encourage a child who has the gift of creativity so that they will be the next generation of starving artists for a friend to take to lunch on International Artists' Day, perpetuating the cycle forever. Maybe you could deny a local artist a grant and instead give that money to a long-established and financially successful international artist, allowing them to effectively demolish the very small local arts economy. And the final way to celebrate International Artists' Day is by clicking attending on an online event, despite definitely knowing that you will never, ever attend that event and getting that artist's hopes up. So we hope that you will indulge in one of those ways to celebrate International Artists' Day with us. If you want to celebrate International Artists' Day with me, I'm on tour. Yes, that's right. I've got a number of shows coming up of my storytelling and stand-up show, Wage Against the Machine. I will be in Wynnum in Queensland for the Wynnum Fringe on November 22nd and 24th. And that will be the last of the shows for this year before the cycle starts anew. And I'll be starting next year at Rockingham. Yes, that's right, we've got a brand new Fringe over in Rockingham in Western Australia. So if you're in the area and you don't want to travel the hour that it takes to get to Perth for the Perth Fringe, don't worry, I got you covered, Rockingham. I'll be coming out on January 19th. Then I'll be back in Perth for the Perth Fringe World from the 12th to the 18th of February. And I, of course, will be at the Adelaide Fringe from the 29th of February to the 10th of March, doing the Thursday till Sunday shows only. So if you're interested in any of those, come check out the festival. I do encourage you to come down. It is definitely the best way to support this show. If you can't come out to any of the live shows, if I'm not in your area and you still want to support this podcast, great. You can sign up to our Patreon. It's patreon.com/Matt Harvey Stuff, where all of our bonus stories go. And today's bonus story is a real hoot, guys. A real hoot. And you should sign up to the Patreon and go and check that out. But until then, I will be the bearer of weird news. Let's get into the headlines. So in a rare move, the Liberal Party has apologised to voters after incorrectly suggesting that they could apply for a postal vote before writs for the referendum had been issued. Now, it is worth noting that they are only apologising because the only people who will be impacted by that would actually be people who made the rookie error of listening to the coalition's advice. I mean, it's not the first time the coalition voters have been misinformed by their party of choice. The Liberal Party have long been the Michael Jordan of misinformation. And you know their motto, if you don't know, vote Liberal. Seems like cricket might be included in the 2028 Los Angeles Olympics after a demonstration game was held 128 years ago. Now, it might have been added a little bit sooner, but they're actually still playing and they've only just wrapped up that first game right now. So we can actually get into including it into the larger Olympics. Cricket is, of course, an interesting choice by America, who famously do not play the game. Normally the Olympics is about forcing your national sport onto others in order to embarrass them on a global scale. However, I guess forcing a sport into global competition and then proceeding to have your ass kicked in it, well, that really is cricket, isn't it? You're being very British about this all, America. It's good to see you growing up. Of course, as the host city, America will get automatic inclusion into the sport, and being automatically included despite not being good enough to actually beat anyone. Hey, that's Britain's job. America, that's Britain's job. You're not allowed to do that. Before Paris 2024 has even happened, breakdancing is officially out. I guess the IOC saw the prospect of that many white people dancing was just too much for them, and they couldn't handle it. So they've bailed on the whole agenda. Former Tinder CEO Nate Nyborg's new startup, Mino, announced that it has raised a $3.9 million in seed money for the app, which aims to fight loneliness through an AI-powered chatbot. Out of habit, the beta testers for the new app sent one message to the AI before sending it an unsolicited dick pic, just to see how it would handle it. Moments later, Nyborg said that Mino won't be a virtual girlfriend, boyfriend, clinical therapist, or coach. Mino will instead learn more from your usage of the app and give you better relationship advice. Its first piece of advice is, don't take advice on how to be a better human from a robot. A team of Egyptian-German archaeologists have discovered 8 storage chambers in the pyramid of Sahura. The British Museum rushed to the site with their whip and fedora, punched the Germans on the assumption that they were Nazis, and declared, all of this belongs in a museum! Our museum specifically, back off! And then fucked off out of there mumbling something about snakes. It was a weird thing. Bob Catter has suggested Australian heroes should be featured on the nation's coins instead of King Charles III. Aside from genuinely floating the idea of himself wrestling a crocodile, the suggested Australian heroes do include a lump of coal, a reef dying of climate change, the Nauru Detention Centre, and of course, a crocodile killing someone in North Queensland. The opposite side of that coin would be 1,000 blossoms blooming. Beautiful. Australia Post has scrapped attempted delivery cards for some customers in favour of digital notifications. Like the paper notices, digital notifications will advise customers that Australia Post didn't bother to try and deliver their package. But it will speed up the pretending to deliver process, as the posties won't even have to come to your front door in order to pretend that nobody was home. They can all do that from the comfort of their van. Donald Trump has allegedly discussed potentially sensitive information about US nuclear submarines with an Australian billionaire, a guy called Anthony Pratt, 3 months after leaving office. Allegedly, Trump discussed the supposed exact numbers of nuclear warheads US submarines routinely carry and exactly how close they supposedly can get to a Russian submarine without being detected. Sorry guys, look, I hate to be the one to break it to you, but if you don't believe that aliens have never visited Earth before now, here, you just got your proof. All the proof that you need that aliens definitely have never visited Earth. You think that this man, who keeps classified information in boxes in a toilet and gives away military secrets, could hold on to that information and keep it to himself? Or if you really want to dig in, maybe they clearly just didn't tell him because they knew that he couldn't be trusted, so they just kept it from him. Oh, that's genius. I think we've just found a new conspiracy theory to unlock. That's fun. I'll leave that with you guys as I move on to the bigger news now. First up, assassination news. We, as a species, have two great loves: a high-profile assassination and a conspiracy. And when we can combine those two things into a generation-spanning celebrity conspiracy that involves a high-profile beef, maybe the government, and maybe a Da Vinci-style cover-up using hip-hop lyrics, hidden identities, numerology, and the secret lair in a foreign country, then we can only be talking about one thing, baby: Tupac Shakur. That's right, Tupac is back. Tupac is back in the news. He's back in the news. It's not back. And this time, it's not because he's doing a set at Coachella via the means of modern technology, mostly because the new union contract didn't allow that kind of behaviour anymore. No more digital copies, alright? We're done with that. So what does the news say? Oh, apparently a grand jury has confirmed Sean Combs was involved in the Tupac Shakur murder. Wow, this is notoriously B.I.G. if true. So, hang on, what's going on? What's actually going on here? So, turns out on October 5th, 2023, celebrity gossip YouTube channel Spill Today, which sounds like a reputable source if ever I heard one, published a video that claimed a grand jury had confirmed that Sean Puff Daddy Puffy P. Diddy Combs had a role in Tupac's murder. Now, to be fair, it is the way that most people know Diddy, attaching his name to a larger, more established or more talented hip-hop artist's work, so this is staying in tune with what he's always done. So far, I'm on board. We've all worked with a P. Diddy before, someone who just doesn't put in the time and put in the effort and attaches their name at the end. The clip's title reads, Diddy's role in Tupac murder confirmed as grand jury transcript leaks, all in caps, the leaks and the confirmed. The video was viewed over 97,300 times, so it immediately shot to the top of the YouTube garbage heap. Yes, that's right, because despite its claim that the grand jury confirmed Combs' role in Shakur's murder was made without evidence whatsoever. I mean, come on. Diddy? You thought Diddy did it? We're just giving credit to anyone these days, aren't we? We're not even putting in the effort to do a proper conspiracy theory. We're just dumping credit on the first person who comes along. The assassination of Tupac was a beloved conspiracy theory, rising through the ranks to basically JFK assassination status. And the cops puttering about, taking their damn time, certainly didn't help. Now, I understand that Tupac wasn't exactly a fan of the police and famously baked criticism of law enforcement into his lyrics. He was speaking out against police harassment. It wasn't exactly unjust criticism. The criticism, some might say, is fully justified, as they would go on to take a mere 30 years to solve his murder. His murder that happened on the Vegas Strip. I mean, the amount of people there, it may as well have been halftime show at the AFL Grand Final. It couldn't have been a more crowded place unless it had happened in the backseat of a clown car. Although clowns are notoriously tight-lipped, so if it had, you ain't getting nothing out of them. Clowns don't snitch, baby. Clowns don't snitch. So who did it? If it wasn't Diddy, who did it? Was it Biggie? Was it Suge Knight? Was it Tupac's alter ego, Machiavelli, so that he could move to Cuba or visit Malaysia to live with Jim Morrison and Elvis in the Illuminati retirement home? Who did it? A man called Dwayne Keefe D. Davis. Who the fuck is that? That's not exciting. That's not sexy. That doesn't confirm a secret underworld of hidden celebrities. Shit. I was really banking on that. I don't know where we're going to go from here. Alright. Turns out prosecutors claimed Davis ordered the 1996 drive-by shooting that killed Shakur. Davis reportedly told investigators years prior to his arrest that Diddy offered him $1 million to kill Shakur and Suge Knight, who was head of Shakur's music label at the time of his death. So this guy is new, right? It's not like Davis had long been known to investigators, those who chronicled the case, or had identified Davis as the lead suspect in Shakur's killing at the time by Greg Kading, a Los Angeles detective who spent years investigating the Shakur killing and wrote a book on the topic, or revealed his involvement in this crime, saying that he knew the identity of Shakur's killer on television, say in a 2018 BET documentary, or that he said in 2019 in his autobiography Compton Street Legend that he was in the front seat of the car that drove by Shakur, but only after a cancer diagnosis in 2018, mind you. So none of this would have happened if this guy had, worn sunscreen or not smoked cigarettes or whatever it is that caused his particular cancer. We would never know who had killed Tupac. Clearly, they couldn't act sooner. There has just been no clear evidence that linked this man to the case and required a 30-year investigation. Obviously, that was the only way it could be done. There wasn't mountains of evidence and public self-confessions, because they don't just present themselves. That's a kind of nonsense world that they write in Hollywood. People don't just leave little clues around expecting you to find them. People don't just do major interviews expecting you to watch them and be like, hey, that guy just confessed to helping kill Shakur. Maybe we should investigate that. Lieutenant Jason Johnson said detectives had pieced together most of the circumstances and people involved in the events that led to the shooting in the first few months of their investigation, but they long lacked admissible evidence to seek criminal charges. Going on to curse Davies for failing to make this confession in the form of a rap song. If only someone had gone to the trouble of writing a song in the rap or hip-hop genre about this. Then someone could have used those lyrics as admissible evidence of a crime. Police famously only respond to hip-hop/rap related offences if someone goes to the trouble of laying it down over some sort of sick beat. Unless it's a cry for help, or the calling out of racism, or a breakdown of the systemic issues facing the black community. But murder confessions, be they real or not, man, they fucking love those murder confessions. Moving on now to slightly tougher news, it is war news. Now guys, I need you to keep in mind, by the time you hear this, most, if not all, of this information will probably be wildly different, and even the things that had changed will have changed again by the time I have finished this sentence. But if you are coming to this podcast as your first source of news, you have mistaken what we do here for something of speedy importance, as opposed to the aggregator and commenter of bullshit that we are. And if you do, sorry, that's on you. I also understand that some of you might not want to hear this, and that is also understandable. If you can't handle this right now, feel free to skip ahead. Thanks for your time, and enjoy the rest of your day. Alright, now that those cowards have gone, let's talk about peace in the Middle East. More specifically, the lack of peace in the Middle East, as Israel has dropped all pretense of peacekeeping and has officially declared war. There is a lot to unpack here. So what does Israel's declaration of war mean for the Palestinians in Gaza? Frankly, nothing good. Though, to be fair, almost no declaration of war means anything good. These days, even the declaration of a new Star Wars has people divided over what went wrong in that part of the galaxy and who's to blame and what should be done about it to fix it. So maybe the only declaration of war that doesn't bring immediate dread to people's minds is a declaration of a thumb war. I declare a thumb war. Unless you're going up against Jimmy Big Thumbs, who had his big toes attached to his hands to take the title of Ultimate Thumb Warrior. Sure, they aren't all very dexterous, but nobody else wants to wrap their thumb around his freakish toe hands and get his dirty toe stink all over their thumb. Israel's Prime Minister and warmonger magazine's one to keep an eye on since 2008, Benjamin Netanyahu, has upgraded his declaration from a simple declaration of war, the minimum required to legally murder a bunch of people that you don't like, to a long and difficult war, which, given the country's running a total of roughly 120-ish years of not-so-secret war, doesn't spell good things for the area. Since the declaration, 130 targets were struck within just 3 hours, and the death toll has risen to 413, including 78 children and injured of over 2,000. Sorry, now that's 2,200. Sorry, that's at least 2,329 people have been killed, and another 9,714 have been injured. Oh, sorry, we're just updating that now. It's actually, authorities are saying that it's more than 2,200 people have been killed. A quarter of them children, that's nearly 10,000 wounded, 180,000 people have been made homeless, and strikes had since the initial incident destroyed more than 22,600 residential units and 10 healthcare facilities and damaged 48 schools. And that's just from the terrorist attacks from the Israeli government. Take that, Israel. Gotcha. But what about Hamas attacking a music festival? And starting all of this, I'm making you ask as a straw man for my next point. Well, you got a lot to learn about listening, buddy, so listen up. If you ask a lot of people, they'll be able to tell you for sure that terrorists came over the Israeli border and attacked a music festival, took some hostages, and from there, reports get kind of wild, depending on how bad your media literacy is, who you want to blame, and how you want to justify the bombing of said people. Hint, it should be nobody, and how prone you are to misinformation will also indicate how well you take this information. But the rumors are fucking wild, guys. So let's start with some facts. Hard to do in a war zone, I know. So here we go. Israel is indeed acting in response to an operation called the Al-Aqsa Storm. Hamas, whose formal name is the Islamic Resistance Movement, fired thousands of rockets into Israel. Armed paragliders came over the border in a stunning display that showed ingenuity and was incredibly dorky at the same time. Here's a clip. It is very bizarre. Don't worry, there's nothing explicit in the clip, it's just paragliders. So, but if you don't want to even risk that, feel free to just fast forward this a little bit. If you never thought a kite could be useful for anything other than getting stuck in trees or a midlife crisis, you are dead wrong, mister. You are dead wrong. Look at that ingenuity. This is the most impressive feat of kitery since Philly Davenport pulled off a half axle into a Roland Susan, a Jacob's ladder, and then a Humpty Doo, followed by a Hindenburg flambe burning down the entire play equipment and rendering it unusable for a year, and then burning his name into suburban mythology for generations, as many debate whether or not it even actually happened. And look, I don't really mean to get hung up on this whole kites thing, honestly, but there's going to be very few moments of levity in this next little bit, and I just need to show how kind of impressive this is. Like, a little bit. It's still a terrible thing. They attacked the music festival. There's a whole thing here, because like they had to train to do this. This isn't just like a weekend away with the boys learning to pilot a motorized hang glider. Apparently it takes like 5 days. That's a full work week to learn how to fly one of these things. They also use bulldozers to poke gaping holes in the barrier fence to gain access to Israeli territory, formerly Palestinian territory. They killed more than 1,000 people and seized at least 100 hostages. See, now you wish that I was talking about hang gliders, don't you? Now we're talking about hostages, but no, hang glider time is over. For those who don't know, Hamas, look, they are a terrorist organization. The thing people seem to be having trouble with is that Hamas is not all of Palestine, in the same way that the Taliban is not all of Afghanistan, and that the Zionists are not all of Israel, and one nation is not all of Australia. You understand? Hamas was founded in 1987 by members of the Muslim Brotherhood and religious factions of the Palestine Liberation Organization. They want to create a Palestinian state. Well, recreate, take back the land stolen by Israeli occupation. They also reject any peace deal with Israel and refuse to recognize them. And that's a big thing, to reject the very country that created you, like rejecting a parental figure. Real Shakespearean Greek tragedy stuff right there. Oh, yeah, that's right. You heard correctly, guys. In the same way that America created Bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, Israel created Hamas. Here is retired Israeli official Avner Cohen. Hamas, to my great regret, is Israel's creation. Hamas was encouraged as a counterweight to the secular nationalists of the Palestine Liberation Organization. The enemy of my enemy is my future enemy, because they would have no reason to not also come after me, as I was also a bad guy in the region and caused a shitload of trouble situation. You know? Like a Tarantino script, but with fewer white guys dropping N-bombs and less focus on bare feet. Although, it goes back further than that. Now, while we are pro-freeing Palestine, this podcast, it's a pro-Palestine podcast, just if you can't handle that, you gotta go now. It's important that you understand that we are not anti-Semitic. The actions of the IDF and Hamas are both disgusting. Nobody is denying that. But 200 wrongs don't make a right. But the settlement of Israel has directly led to the development of an apartheid state and the keeping of the Palestinian people in what is effectively an open-air prison, where the Israeli government controls their electricity, their water, and stops them from even leaving their own country, and attempting an ethnic cleansing of the people of Palestine and decolonization is often a violent process. Believe us, here in Australia, we have tried to be nice about it by doing something like providing a voice to Parliament to improve the lives of our Indigenous populations. And white people took an affront to that, voting it down in record numbers for a variety of excuses. So often, the escalation to violence becomes the only road to be heard. The lion's share of the fault falls on the Israeli government, because they have a massive power imbalance with the backing of the world's largest army, America, and the lapdog countries like us, Australia. Basically, hand-waving away the atrocity of the deaths of Palestinian children because Israel has a duty to respond to attacks. Blech. They also often claim that Israel has a right to defend themselves. The great lesson of history that we constantly teach our children but can't seem to apply is that two wrongs don't make a right. A lot of people have come out to defend Israel because we are scared of being seen as anti-Semitic, which is fair. History is full of terrible anti-Semites. I've seen some of those guys, and it's company that I do not want to keep. It's idiots like Peter Dutton, who, when someone comes out as pro-Palestine, Dutton, in his infinite stupidity, will go and call for attendees of pro-Palestine rallies to have their visas cancelled and be deported. Just take a moment. Okay. Now, some of the anti-Semites did take the opportunity to show their stupid racist heads and try and turn this whole thing into a thing for them. Hey, anti-Semites, this isn't about you. You take your genocidal nonsense, you collect it with all your other genocidal fuckheads, and we'll give you what you want. A chance to be alone. We will fire you into space. You can all go looking for that Jewish space laser that you're always banging on about. Report back, see if you find anything. But, based on the presence of these few idiots, Dutton says they all must go. Just in case, you know. So by that logic, we should use this as a chance to hold him to his own standards. It'll be a nice change from holding him to no standards at all. So I do look forward to holding Dutton accountable for every action that his party members take. So I do look forward to holding Dutton accountable for every action his party members take. Seems to be the new standard that he wants to hold others to. So it must surely be the philosophical yardstick by which he wants to be measured. Honestly, this is why, despite whinging opinion, it's a good time to be a white person. It's so easy to disregard one of our own and throw them into the dustbin of history. Nobody will think twice about it. And as a redhead, it's becoming increasingly important that I separate myself from certain members of the redhead community. After all, we do have Louis C.K., Woody Allen, and Carrot Top. Historically, the likes of Oliver Cromwell, and of course, locally, we have Pauline Hanson. But I am happy to distance myself from the actions of the individual redheads. When I stand with my fellow redheads. When I say, we need to block out the sun in order to keep ourselves safe. See? It doesn't feel good. We have a right to defend ourselves from the sun, but you guys would probably enjoy the sun more. Now when it comes to world events, that we should never assume history has only just begun simply because we started paying attention. This whole situation is extremely fucked, and anyone who tells you otherwise is a liar who is trying to sell you genocide. Simple solutions to complicated problems do not exist, and anyone who tells you otherwise is trying to sell you genocide, but maybe just under another name. Genocide light, or gene extraction maneuvers. You know, like a horrible snake oil salesman, but the main ingredient is the blood of the innocent. But won't you look good with your patented youth elixir, now only 70% blood of the innocent? Israel has ordered the evacuation of 1.9 million people from the northern part of Gaza, with the simple warning things are about to be a lot more explodey than they were a few weeks ago, and that's saying a lot because things are often very explodey in that region. But where are they going to go, guys? Where are they going to go? Egypt is warned of grave consequences from Israel escalating its fighting. According to a statement, Egypt urged both sides to exercise maximum restraint and avoid exposing civilians to further risks. It also urged Israel to halt its attacks and provocations against the Palestinian people and to adhere to the rules of international humanitarian law with regard to the responsibilities of the occupying state. And guys, when Egypt is calling you out and calling on you to calm down and take a moment and have a chat and maybe follow some of those international humanitarian laws, you know you have gotten somewhat out of control. It's like taking a lecture about not locking refugees in detention from Australia, or a lesson on not fucking up local populations from Australia, or a lecture in not damaging world climate to such an unmanageable degree that neighbouring countries will be drowned from Australia. What can I say? We know how to mess a thing or two up. Humanitarian groups said that evacuees had nowhere to go, living in an open-air prison and all. Israel has blocked off all the borders out of Gaza, with the exception of the border heading into Egypt. But it appears that that border is sealed as well, amid confusion over whether the neighbouring country would allow anyone to actually exit Gaza. The Israeli diplomat in Australia says now's not the time to talk about de-escalation. I mean, not now. Not after we've finally been given the green light from large chunks of the world to bomb these guys, something that we've been looking for many, many years. It's definitely not time to de-escalate. Israel has halted deliveries of basic necessities and electricity to Gaza's 2.3 million people and prevented entry of supplies from Egypt. Gaza also faces a growing water crisis as Palestinians were struggling to evacuate northern Gaza by foot, car and donkey cart. With Israel sealing off the territory, the only way in or out is through the crossing with Egypt at the Rafah border. So of course, Israel proceeded to bomb the fuck out of the only way out.
Israel is preparing for a major ground offensive into the territory while maintaining a heavy bombing campaign of targets in the hunt for members of Hamas. The group is designated as a terror organisation by many Western governments, including the UK. Within the hour, we've had news of an Israeli airstrike on the Rafah crossing on the border with Egypt,
which is currently the only way out and the main exit point from Gaza, not controlled by Israel. Was closed after Israel bombardments hit on the Palestinian side. But Cairo, wary of political fallout and security risks, is determined to prevent an exodus of refugees to Egypt. What they call a reverse Moses, as this time people want to enter into Egypt, and it's because of oppression from a Jewish government. You live long enough and you'll see yourself become the villain. That's what it seems. I mean, at least Hamas had to become a terrorist organisation before they started doing fucking atrocities. Fuck me. With the shifting nature of war, I think our time is best spent covering the things that have been debunked, especially as X, formerly known as a semi-reliable source of news, Twitter, is drowning in disinformation. More than usual, which is saying a lot, especially recently. Because let's be honest, Elon Musk has gone from being chief twit to the CEO of chaos, and not in a good way. Alright, first off, it's war crimes time! There's going to be a lot of accusations of war crimes flying back and forth over the news and social media in the coming weeks, months, and maybe years of this escalating war. The Palestinian people might not have a charismatic comedian as their leader, but we can't stand by and let further suffering happen in this region, especially because we are responsible for so much of it. The UN's Human Rights Council are saying that there is already clear evidence that war crimes have been committed in Israel and Gaza. The UN's Independent International Commission of Inquiry on the occupied Palestinian territory said it has been collecting evidence of war crimes committed by all sides. So, two good things. One, everyone can take comfort. There is terrible people on both sides, guys. Terrible people on both sides, yay. And two, we found a use for the UN. Finally, guys, we found a use for the UN. It may have been many, many years of hard searching for an effective use for the UN, aside from speeches, but we did it, guys, we did it. So, thanks to the governments of Israel and Palestine for this continued genocide and making the UN useful. Israel has been caught using white phosphorus in Gaza and Lebanon, putting civilians at risk of serious and long-term injuries. See, the use of white phosphorus in Gaza, one of the most densely populated areas in the world, magnifies the risk to civilians and violates the international humanitarian law prohibition on putting civilians at unnecessary risk. And like a teacher threatening to keep the whole class behind if they don't snitch on the class clown, Israel has been implementing collective punishment by trapping the Palestinian citizens in order to punish Hamas. Guys, just so you know, collective punishment is expressly forbidden by Article 33 of the 4th Geneva Convention and by Israel's own laws. I have to assume that they thought nobody would care, the same way that nobody cared about how any weddings America bombed in the hunt for WMDs. But Israel doesn't have enough soft power to get away with collective punishment, you understand? You need to make a few high-grossing movies or to get George Clooney or Brad Pitt out here, alright? That's what we need, an Israeli Brad Pitt before you can go doing collective punishment and nobody cares. We're going to do it properly, or else it just shows that you have learned nothing. The aforementioned 4th Geneva Convention, adopted in 1949 in the aftermath of World War II, is centered on affording protection to civilians, including in occupied territories, which has been violated. Both sides have taken children hostage and killed children in many, many attacks. And I'm just going to jump on this now, before anything else, as this is a particularly horrid rumour. You may have heard that Hamas was decapitating babies. There is no evidence of Hamas decapitating babies. None. That's just not a thing that has happened. Despite US President and old man who will form the scapegoat argument for why you should keep working until you die, that being, well, if he can run a country at 80, you can keep working in this job, Joe Biden.
We're also going to discuss the ironclad commitment, and this is, I'll say this 5,000 times in my career, the ironclad commitment the United States has to Israel based on our principles, our ideas, our values. They're the same values. And I've often said, Mr. President, if there were not an Israel, we'd have to invent one.
It is the best $3 billion investment we make. Were there not an Israel, the United States of America would have to invent an Israel to protect her interest in the region.
Who publicly claimed he had seen evidence of it. What a fucking liar. That claim was later walked back by Biden's staff. Reports have revealed that no such beheadings have been verified, not international sources, not even by Israeli sources. See, even the Israelis are denying that it happened, and if anyone has a reason to claim this happened, it's Israel. Can we just have, for lack of a better term, a civil war? No more fake dead babies. It's hard enough hearing all of this from a distance without people deliberately going out of their way to make it worse. Calm your propaganda farm, please. So what else? Okay. Claims that Hamas soldiers raped women is the next largest shared claim. Now, I read a lot to look for this. There is limited evidence of specific cases of rape during the attack by Hamas. Now, I'm not going to talk about this more. It's a terrible thing that, by all accounts, didn't actually happen. And given that this was a large part of the outrage that caused people to jump up on Team Israel, it's important that we clear it up. There's basically no evidence that this happened. So we're going to move on. Now, there is a video going around that purports to show a story from the BBC about a recent report from Bellingcat on Ukraine providing arms to Hamas. But neither the BBC nor Bellingcat has reported any evidence to support the notion that Ukraine funneled arms to Hamas. And honestly, this is such a weird and ridiculous claim. Like, I understand what they're trying to do. They're trying to draw us into like a conspiracy of turning us against the Ukrainians and the Palestinian citizens by tying these two things together. I get that, but they really missed the most important thing here. The Ukraine is in a war. They don't have spare weapons to send off to another war. Don't be stupid. If you're going to try and make up some stuff, at least try and make something credible. So, There are claims that the holy Christian site, the Greek Orthodox Church of St. Porphyrius, was destroyed during Israel's bombing of Gaza. Officials with the church have confirmed that the church remains intact and unharmed during the shelling. They went on to say, give it some time, but as of right now, we are good. But probably later. Good chance later. Alright, what else we got? Here we go. A video of a young actor being filmed lying in a pool of fake blood claims to show propaganda being created for use in Israel-Hamas war. Okay, well shit, this might be a bigger video lie than the moon landing. Or it would be if the video wasn't actually a behind-the-scenes footage from the making of Empty Place, a short film focused on the story of Ahmad Mansara, the Palestinian who was arrested at the age of 13 in 2015 in relation to the stabbing of 2 Israelis. On the positive side, the filmmakers are set to win the Academy Award for Best Adapted Footage for propaganda purposes. It's an extremely large category over the last couple of years and only getting bigger. A memo shows that President Joe Biden just announced that he is sending $8 billion in military aid to Israel. Well, fuck me. Except, of course, however, that image of the memo being widely shared online is, of course, fabricated. And Biden has made no such announcement. The White House has confirmed. The memo appears to be a doctored version of the order Biden issued providing $400 million for war assistance to Ukraine in the summer. So it's a different set of oppressed peoples that they were supporting. It's the one that you like. The one that you liked from the beginning. The one we haven't had to convince you to like. The Biden government would never give Israel that much money.
And I've often said, Mr. President, if there were not an Israel, we'd have to invent one.
Come on, as of February 2022, the United States has only provided Israel with $150 billion, and that's non-inflation adjusted in bilateral assistance? Whew! Fuck. That's a lot of money. But not in a single setting, right? Let's be sensible. That was distributed over time, over a long war, to help Biden create his super army, to create the Israeli state that he was so happy to have created so long ago. Do we have a clip?
And I've often said, Mr. President, if there were not an Israel, we'd have to invent one.
See, this is a long-term project. It's like a DIY veranda. You don't knock it out in a single weekend. Gaza wasn't sacked in a day, guys. Come on. It has been politically convenient to overlook the terrorism of Israel's government, because if we separate that from the innocent civilians, we'd have to do so in other countries, right? Countries where we aren't friends with. Countries with oil in particular. You know what I'm saying? Browner countries. If we start separating the terrorists from the civilians now, after 20 years in Afghanistan and 10 years in Iraq, desperately seeking oil, WMDs and terrorists, searching the rubble of every wedding that we could bomb, seeing how much justification we could find in the remains, well, that'd be embarrassing. And weirdly, no matter how many times civilians denounce the acts of terrorists, we keep accidentally blowing up weddings and hospitals, just in case. But justifications were harder to find than those WMDs, but the longer they kept looking, the more they kept not showing up. Because we need a bad guy to blame, and they aren't all as easy to get on board with as the Nazis, and weirdly, even these days, for some people, that's not even an easy thing to get on board with. But we do still need a villain, don't we? I mean, as a species, we need a villain. So don't worry guys, I got ya. It's everyone's favourite age-old enemy, the British! Woo! Guns in the Flashback, 1917. Arthur Balfour, a British statesman, conservative politician, and man you should never live near a stretch of land, was seeking funding. And as we are reaching the end of a very expensive war, you may have heard of it. A little-known conflict that we like to call World War I. I mean, only real warheads talk about this one. Everyone focuses on World War II, and yeah, that's great. But this is the original. Well, Balfour asked for funding from the Rothschilds. Yeah, those Rothschilds. The banking family who built a fortune. In exchange for cash, the British promised a home for the Zionists in exchange for money. At the same time, Sharif Hussein ibn Ali, the Sharif of Mecca, was told by the Brits that if you and your forces rise up against the Ottoman Caliphate, and the British will give you an Arab state. So with British backing, Hussein launched the Arab revolt against Ottoman forces in Arabia. And at the same time, again, a little thing called the Sykes-Picot Agreement between the British and the French, with assent from the Russian Empire, the Kingdom of Italy, set out partitioning the Ottoman Empire. So they'd already carved up the map where they were promising both the Jews and the Muslims some of that sweet, sweet Holy Land. So the war ends. The British occupation of Palestine begins. They bring in Jewish people in an attempt to end rising anti-Semitism across Europe by providing the Jewish people a home, doing what they have historically done best, fucking up on native people by rewriting some maps. They undertook their favourite pastime, cutting up maps so that we can undertake our favourite pastime, blaming the British. Come on, they've earned it, unlike anything that their royalty owns. Think about this. The Germans fucked up twice. Granted, they were very big fuck-ups, to put it lightly. But we never let them forget. And they've actually done a decent job of making sure things improve. Whereas the British, they haven't. They just fall back on the old imperial boys will be imperial boys mentality. The British, like the Nazis, are a good catch-all villain. And they fucked up so much that we can generally point to a problem and know that the British were involved somehow. So you got it, guys. You're welcome. We solved the problem. Once and for all. Okay, that was a lot. It's hard out here in the news sometimes. Maybe we should explore something a little more light and fun. Moving on now to refugee news! Whoops! Over to Papua New Guinea, the world's third largest island known for its abundant resources, warm people continued hatred of witches and being the home of the stately detention centre known as Australia's Guantanamo. Also, one of the major recipients of all our climate change disasters and jokes.
Take your time. That's just mate, take your time. Yeah, I tell you, we had a bit of that up in Port Moresby. Oh yeah. Anyway, it was a good meeting.
When was it Moresby?
The time doesn't mean anything when you're about to be, have water lapping at your hands.
Ha ha ha! We might be responsible for the killing of a bunch of people. Fucking hilarious. Hilarious. That man runs the opposition. Can you believe that? Well, Papua New Guinea is getting a little back of its own. Yeah, that's right. They are threatening to send refugees back to Australia unless we pay up to $48 million in expenses. Papua New Guinea officially accuses Australia of abandoning 70 refugees exiled to Papua New Guinea over a decade ago. Excuse me, Papua New Guinea. But are you accusing the Australian government of neglecting a disenfranchised group of underdogs who are in a vulnerable position because of actions taken by a country in the past? That doesn't sound like the Australia that I know. I think you have us confused with another, less caring government. We are a jovial and fun-loving government. Do we have a clip?
The time doesn't mean anything when you're about to be, have water lapping at your hands.
See? Jokes! We're jovial. We're a good people. We make jokes. The Australian government maintains it has no responsibility for the refugees that they dump there. Oh, no, never mind. You nailed us the first time. You're right. That's us to a T. You really got us, didn't you? PNG. Yeah, tricky little country, you. The government maintains that it has no responsibility for the welfare of refugees that it sent to PNG, most in 2013 and 2014. No responsibility is the standard response from Australia's government, no matter who is in charge. No duty of care, no responsibility. It's what the Australian phrase, no worries, actually means. We will not be worrying about your problems. PNG's Chief Migration Officer and man who's heard all of your excuses before, Stanis Hulahau, said that the refugees had been abandoned by Australia and the business that had been housing and caring for the men were owed tens of millions of dollars. The remaining refugees had been told they faced eviction because the bills at their places of accommodation had not been paid in about a year. Saying if Australia wants refugees to continue to remain in Papua New Guinea, then they have to fund the program, or we will shut the program and send the refugees back to Australia. But Australia is doubling down, because that's what we do best. A government spokesperson said, those held in PNG are under the independent management of the PNG government. The department does not have any role in the ongoing management of or service delivery arrangements for individuals remaining in PNG and does not monitor the caseload. Going on to remind the Chief Immigration Officer, we don't even look after our own struggling populations. Why do you think we left them with you in the first place? We are a parent who knows that they are going to fuck it up, abandoning a baby at a fire station with a little note attached to them saying, oh, I'm so sorry. His name is Robbo. Doesn't matter if he tells you otherwise, his name is definitely Robbo. Australia conveniently signed a confidential bilateral agreement with PNG. The secret contract was signed by the Morrison government, but its existence was never declared, which is typical of the Morrison government, if I'm honest. Morrison did like to keep secrets, right? While he was in power. And let's be honest, it makes a lot of sense. Home Affairs was one of Morrison's secret ministries, so he couldn't exactly tell anybody about all of this. Lau said Australia's funding was initially forecast to run over 2021 and 2022, and that the Australian government had paid no more funds since then despite refugees remaining in PNG, saying it was anticipated that most remaining persons would depart to the US or Canada. If Australia wants the refugees to continue to remain in Papua New Guinea, then they have to fund the program, or we will shut the program and send the refugees back to Australia to manage. Now this is a productive threat. How will you be sending them back here? That's the question. Is it by plane? If it's by plane, then that will mean nothing. That's not going to scare any of us. We only respond to aggressive threats, okay? They'll need to be sent here on a boat, and make sure that is a rickety boat if you can. That'll really play out well. Then Australia will be scared. As a country, we've never been more scared of anything else. Well, except emus that one time. But we need to decide on what kind of boat that you can send them via, because it could be submarine. We have an impressive submarine budget, but no submarines, so that would actually succeed. But if you really want to get our attention, if you're gonna send them here, you're gonna send them in a good little tugboat, or like a similar little vehicle like that. This way, we can talk about the refugees throwing each other overboard and round up the boat and send them back to the recently reopened Nauru, where we will take over the payments once more and maybe finally get those guys into another country, like we promised. Australia has reportedly stated that it transferred responsibility of the men's welfare to the PNG government at the end of 2021, a position not supported by international law, which maintains that Australia retains legal responsibility for those that it has sent offshore. But we've never really been one for following international law. After all, we are running our own international humanitarian crisis factory on Nauru, which is what got us into this trouble in the first place. We aren't going to take care of this until a court makes us compensate those people for the horrible way that we've neglected their basic human rights in a class action lawsuit. That's the Australian way. The contract was to pay an undisclosed amount of money to PNG's Immigration and Citizenship Authority to provide welfare services to the refugees remaining in the country. Whoa, PNG, whoa! You fucked it up now. You can't be saying things like that. You can't say the W word. That's a funding death sentence. Welfare? Are you kidding me? Are you seriously expecting Australia to pay welfare? Clearly, they haven't heard about robo-debt. Guys, PNG, you gotta look up robo-debt. Clearly they haven't heard about this, or tried to call Centrelink past 9 AM, because then they've discovered that we do not care about welfare in this country. I'm starting to think that you aren't at all serious about this. If you want Australia to care about these guys, you need to tell them that they are a coal mining conglomerate. 70 guys gone all in on coal. We'd have rolled out the buckets of money for them. We'd have put them in a hotel, and not a detention centre hotel, mind you, a proper hotel. You've got to know who your market is, and you've got to talk to them properly, guys. Come on, this is international diplomacy. You've got to know how to treat war criminals like Australia. That's the end of the episode for today. Thanks for hanging around all the way until the end. If you have signed up, please go check out the Patreon for the bonus story. It's a good one today. It's a real fun one. It's about somebody trying to rip off Bluey, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. But you should go check that out now. If not, if you don't want to join the Patreon, that's okay. You can still come out and see the live shows. Like I said, I'll be in Wyndham, I'll be in Rockingham, I'll be in Perth, I'll be in Adelaide. Eventually I'll be in Melbourne for the Comedy Festival, and we are doing Wage Against the Machine in all of those festivals. It's going to be a fun time. Thank you so much for hanging around. If you have enjoyed this, or if you do enjoy this on a frequent basis, please tell a friend, share it around, do whatever it is that you do on all of the platforms, like subscribe, share, give it a 1-star or a 5-star, and get out there. Enjoy yourselves, guys. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Look after yourselves. Stay safe.